Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Human in Me podcast. You are here with Mpo Muswahle, and I still have my boy here in Damulelo.
What's up?
And then today we have a special guest who is going to talk about with us about happiness. So her name is Lieketseng Sekoto.
Hi, fams.
Welcome, and yeah, thank you for taking the time to come here and do this thing with us. We
Thank you
really
for
ap-
having me. I
we
feel
really
very
appreciate
cool.
it.
I feel very cool.
Okay, so today's episode, we're doing episode number 6, right? Okay, so today's episode is going to focus on happiness. So we just wanted to share some wisdom with you guys on how to go about looking at happiness in itself. So, yeah, part of the reason why I have the getting here is because we once had a conversation on our way to Clermont. We were on our way to Clermont. And something, okay, so it was after I went through something, so I needed some clarity. So I asked for her advice. So basically, what happened here is that I was busy buying books online, right? So there were these other 3 books that I was waiting for. It's called, one of them is called How to Think Fast and Slow. And then another one was the one that I'm currently reading, The Quick and Easy Way to, Public Speaking. So the thing is that I was so excited, for the arrival of those books, right? I was like over the moon. And then as soon as they came to my room, I opened the box, excited and all that stuff with that takealot.com box. And then afterwards, I put the box away, looked at the books, skimmed through the one that I was waiting for the most. And then what happened afterwards is that after quite some time, I started to feel empty. So I couldn't understand what was going on because a few minutes ago, I was all excited and stuff. And then a few minutes after that, I feel empty. Like it's almost like somebody just took my happiness and they just sucked it up out of me. So it was at that time that I realized that my view on happiness or my idea of what constitutes happiness was kind of faulty. I used to believe that I existed between the two extremes. It's either I'm sad, extremely sad, and then I'm excited, extremely excited. So that was the problem that I had. And then, so, so the reason why we are basically having this conversation is because of the fact that we do realize that a lot of people look at I don't know what I should call it, excitement or arousal, like physiological arousal, which is basically what we call excitement. What we call excitement. A lot of people look at that and they start thinking that, okay, this must be happiness. And what I mean about physiological arousal, obviously you guys have been to parties before, and or you've been with family in December, and something was happening, everybody was there, and you were all excited and stuff. You know, you would normally find people taking pictures online, like taking pictures and posting them online, and they would be like, "This is what happiness looks like."
Yeah.
Young told. So I feel like that paints a blurred image of what happiness actually looks like, because a lot of people go through life believing that if I do those things, if I smile, that simply means that I'm happy.
Yeah.
But the problem now is that that thing that we view as happiness is short-lived, because the the hormonal cocktail that you are under during that time is only momentarily. It's like it's like the same thing that happens with a pregnant woman, right? After she gives birth, all the hormones that were in her body, they deplete,
Yeah.
and then she goes through post uh,
Natal.
depression. Why? So it's because of that, she was in the extreme, the higher extreme, and then now, the body needs to get used to an absence of progesterone and estrogen and all that stuff. So now she goes through dead. So that's basically the thing that usually happens. You find yourself all excited and stuff, and then you come back here. So okay, I realize that I talk too much. So let me hand you over to let me hand you over to the Lieketseng so that she can share with us the wisdom.
Okay, cool. So I think maybe I'll probably start with how I probably got to this perspective that I'll explain just now.
That's what I was waiting for.
Yeah, so for me, I think it all started 3 years ago now, and I was reading a book. Yeah, books usually trigger a lot of thoughts for me. So then, I mean, in the intro of the book, the book is called Grounded by Bob Rosen, I think, and it's a book on entrepreneurs and what. I really wasn't expecting the most, but that one sentence triggered me. So what he says in the intro is, like, we often say to people, like, when you first have an encounter with someone, "Hi, I'm Paul." Okay, cool. When you have like your first encounter with someone, so what we usually do is we ask, "Oh, so what do you do?" and stuff, and it's very easy for you to like go on and on. So I do this. I go to UCT. I study audiology and whatnot, until someone says, "Who are you?" And a lot of us just break to silence because it's so hard to answer that, or it starts sounding very personal. So that's when I thought, oh my goodness, like it moved me into introspection. Like, okay, so why is it so hard to answer this question? So that's when I think I kind of started the journey of like trying to experience myself more within, so that I almost understand like what I reflect outwards or something like that. Yeah. So the idea with happiness was, I think I got triggered by someone I was listening to who was talking about the the impermanent state of things. So I was like, oh, hold on, that's actually true. And it was like in the best light, in the sense that most of us human beings move into like extreme states of negativity because we are not able to actually see the impermanent state of things, and then we drown into things that we can't pull ourselves out of, just because you can't see how impermanent things are. And so you just so I was like, oh, that's actually true. But then I also thought, if we're going to talk about the impermanent state of things, then so many things are impermanent. So it was also the same thing I thought with happiness. So if you come through to me and you tell me that, oh, I'm so happy today, I thought about it and I was like, okay, you're happy, and people always have a reason to why they're happy. There's always, so I realized that, okay, so happiness comes with conditions.
Yeah.
Then the unfortunate thing is that impermanent state of things. So it means it's likely that you might be happy for the next hour, but once whatever the thing was reinforcing your happiness dissipates, then your happiness dissipates as well, because then your happiness relied on the condition. And it's unfortunate because everyone wants to be happy. So when that state leaves you, you think you're probably unhappy. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So then it becomes problematic, because then you start triggering negative thoughts. You start triggering very unnecessary things just because now you think you're unhappy. And the only time you become happy is when those desirable conditions come about again. God knows when they'll come about. But you see, it's very problematic. So I thought then that if I'm not happy and I'm not sad, where would I, like, what would I want to feel? Where would I want to be in such a way that it's healthy for me, and it feels good. So I like to tell a lot of people that I think as I think about all the things that happen around us, um, and I started, my journey to like just being conscious and like just being very aware of myself, of my surroundings, what everything means, and just being still, because there's so much noise. People have opinions. This is happening. There's technology. There's that. And if you don't actually take time to ground yourself, you find
Yes.
that you sway. You're always swaying between this and
Yeah.
that. So I was like, okay, I need to find a state where I am unbothered. And by unbothered, it doesn't mean I don't care, but it just means that I'm okay with um, the present moment and things as they are. And so essentially for me that was peace. So I remember telling you that I think we shouldn't strive for happiness, but we should strive for peace. Like everyone will tell you that they want to be happy,
Yeah.
but then all the happiness comes with conditions that might not be fulfilled,
Yeah.
failing which they will automatically be unhappy.
Yep.
I don't want to be unhappy, but I decided that okay, if I can be at peace, that doesn't mean everything in my life is perfection.
Yeah.
Like um, I could not have $100 that I really need for something, and I could choose to be unhappy, or I could choose to be at peace. So for me, peace is like the baseline, or the middle ground actually of everything, and the steady state which I want to maintain. So it's you can move up through other states, but I eventually want to come back to peace and stay there most of the time, because then I feel like being at peace empowers you. Being happy disempowers you, because the actual power lies in the conditions of
Yeah.
happiness. But when you're at peace, it doesn't mean that everything is fine. It just means that you are fine with everything. So the moment you become fine with everything, then you're able to actually move into yourself, empower yourself, and control your reactions. So this means that you become a lot more powerful when you are at peace than when you are happy, because then really you have control over yourself. So essentially, yeah, that's that about happiness. I feel like that's not what we should be striving for.
Yeah, because when you say that happiness always depends on the conditions, right? I remember this other video that I was watching by Jordan Peterson, right? So he's basically telling the same thing to people, that you shouldn't strive for happiness. You should strive for meaning, because like you just said, the impermanent state of happiness in itself, right? So the question that he asks is that when you are striving for happiness, when life gets a little bit chaotic, you can't possibly tell me that you're gonna be happy, inside a tornado. It's just not gonna happen.
Yeah.
So then what's going to happen if that's what you're chasing? If you can't find that, the happiness that you're chasing, what's gonna happen? So that simply means that you're gonna spend most of your time miserable. It's not beneficial for you in any way. So he was like, another thing that you have to realize is that life is life is chaotic and life is tragic, right? So there are conditions that are literally going to knock you off. So if you come across that for an extended period of time, you are going to see yourself as an unhappy individual, because you can't find that, that emotion of,
Yeah.
I don't know, is it a feeling? Is happiness a feeling or emotion?
It's a
I don't-
feeling.
It's a feeling. Yeah, so you're not gonna be able to find the happiness that you're looking for. But when you are driven by meaning, even when the conditions get fucked up, you're able to bring yourself back and be like, I know why I'm doing this thing. So
Yeah.
whatever is happening in the outside is not going to affect me in any way, which is what you just said when you say that you need to be grounded.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
that's very very important, and I like the fact that you talked about being grounded, because another thing that I always tell people is that even with the pursuit of things, right?
Yeah.
You have to understand that, because these days when people say that they are happy, it basically kind of boils down to what you just said about their happiness depending on the conditions or whatever that they get, right? If you say that a particular thing makes you happy,
Yeah.
right? You are going to chase this thing, but the problem with that is that after quite some time, the novelty effect is gonna go away,
Yeah.
and then you're not gonna feel the same way that you felt
You need
about this
more
thing.
stimulation now.
You need more stimulation.
Yeah.
So the problem with that is that now you're gonna find yourself chasing the next shiny thing.
Mm.
How long are you gonna go with chasing the next shiny thing?
Mm.
When does it end?
And I think what we don't realize is how little control we as human beings have on the external environment if your
Yeah.
internal environment is not intact.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do run around in the circles of, I'm looking for that, I'm looking for that, I'm looking for that. But then there's a whole lot of, there's very little purpose. Like once someone sits you down
Mm.
and they're like, what does the item mean to you, or what does your behavior mean?
Mm.
Then you realize that, whoa, I've just been chasing the rush,
Yeah.
but I don't know where
The
I'm headed
rush.
to or what's up. Yeah.
So it's very dangerous. So
Yeah, I don't think it's good.
yeah. So to a certain degree, we need to bring ourselves back and try to ground ourselves. Find peace. Just be at peace.
Yeah.
Because I feel like Lieketseng mentioned the whole thing about peace far more accurately than I can ever be. And like amazing. People get surprised when I tell them that I don't even remember the last time I was sad. Like I honestly do not remember the last time I was sad.
Yeah.
That's because of the conversation that you and I once had. When I realized that existing between the two extremes is not gonna help me,
Mm.
because even the people around me are still gonna knock me off.
Yeah.
But if I'm at peace, if I'm grounded, then I'm okay. So yeah, that's just the thing. So did you wanna say something?
Oh yeah. Yeah, throughout the
Yeah,
conversation.
he's big. This one, he's big.
Yeah.
I've been trying to get rid of him. He's big.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So since the conversations are usually just me and him, and we spend a lot of time together, and it's around self development and stuff.
Mhm.
When she started talking, right, like in my mind, right, I always went out to look for women who who were actual people
Mhm.
and were not just drifting around
Yeah,
and
that's very important,
didn't know
though.
what they want and basically weren't grounded, right?
Mm.
And so I thought, yeah, it's gonna be a really great experience, right? But as she was talking, right, since I'm used to personal development in the sense of how we do things and explain things,
Mhm.
in the beginning I felt so uncomfortable.
Why would you feel uncomfortable?
The thing is, it's like this. I think I was too used to, my way of explaining things and going through life through developing as a person, right?
Okay.
And basically, it's like I had developed a personal preference in terms of the way I wanted information to be heard or like to be conveyed, right?
Okay.
So when she explained how she processes things and how she grows within herself, I appreciated that. But then it made me realize how uncomfortable, right, it would make me, like, to literally spend time with someone who's like a woman and like talks about this stuff, right? Because like the idea I had was that it's gonna be great and we're gonna go along, but then it's like, no, actually it's gonna be uncomfortable, which is where change happens and when growth happens. That's when you get uncomfortable, right? But the point I resonated with that you talked about was the constant change of things, right?
Yeah.
And how things are never, definite. There's always, everything is temporary, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, what I like from you was that you talked about how basically it's a continuation of our conversation with what we had like on WhatsApp a few days ago. The influence of hormones and endocrinology, right? Now, when the idea of happiness is spoken about, right? And when you started talking about it, since it's the subject, there are basically two people that come into my mind, right? The one is an author of a book that I've been reading, right? And it was on the realm of women and relationships. It's called Women, right? How to be the man women desire, right? And this guy, basically the book is an extreme perspective. It's more, it's an extreme perspective in the negative dynamic. But then there's a chapter I like in there where he talks about life, and that's one part that I resonate with in terms of happiness and is associated with this subject, right? But
So,
I won't start with that. I'll start with the second part, which is a perspective I got from while I was watching a video on YouTube by this guy called Sadhguru, right? He's
why
actually a
don't you
guru.
want to start with the happiness part?
No, it's both happiness. It's just
Okay.
I prefer starting with this one, right? So
Okay.
basically, um, there are basically there's like basically two things that people can chase, right? From this guy's perspective, right? It's either you chase pleasure or bliss, right? Now, as he's a guru, right? So he recommends that people chase bliss, right?
What
Which
is bliss here?
bliss is basically, it's basically what she's talking about. It's like the state
Oh.
of becoming okay with everything,
Okay,
right?
okay,
And the
okay.
way things are, right?
Okay, I understand now.
And one thing as she was talking, right? I realized that we're always looking for consistency, right? And security, right? That's basically a need, right? It's natural, right?
Yep.
And so when she said she was looking for peace, right? It's basically, she also said that everything changes, right? But then you're still looking for that, stable state within the chaos, right? And basically, this is what this guy calls bliss, right?
Okay.
And you get that state by being more aware
Uh-huh.
and coming to terms with the fact that you can't have things a certain way and you can't hold certain things, right? And that literally gets you to a point where you develop an inner softness, right? And a level of expansion that you're okay. It's basically what elders have in the community, right? What older people have. Why grandmothers usually make better parents, right? Because they know life more and their judgments are softer, right? On children.
But we don't listen to them. That's another thing.
That's true. That's
We
true.
hardly
That's
ever
true.
listen. Like the thing is that with the science and all that stuff that's happening in the world, right? Well, especially in South Africa, obviously. Um, I don't know. Like a lot of we have that tendency of not of thinking that our parents don't know much. Like we look at them and then we try to make that comparison between the world that they grew up in and the current world, which is technologically driven. But one thing that we seem to forget is that they are human beings. The majority of what they've been through, we are going to go through the same thing because the way they think is basically, or more or less, the same way that we think, because their view of the world has been passed on to us. Yeah, so over time, obviously, we are gonna be, projections of our own parents. So if we think that we know and then we don't listen to them or take the advices, we're gonna find ourselves in situations that we don't know how to deal with them, and like which is basically the thing that's happening with a lot of us. Like if you look in the context of relationships,
That's true.
our relationships are going left, right, and center. There's no direction. But I'm pretty much sure if you can sit down and have a conversation with, uncle or father or mother, I'm pretty much sure they'll be able to give you something. Because there are a lot of mistakes that we make in our relationships, thinking that we are right in taking those, decisions. But when you sit back and you reflect and you look back at it, you're just like, nah, that was a dumb move. But you've already taken the decision and there's no turning back for you. So you just continue going forward. So, yeah, sorry for disturbing you
Yeah.
there.
Okay, that's cool. Now to go back to happiness, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why I made this association is because I remember telling you one time that um, pleasure is at the very essence of happiness, right? And there's a pleasure principle, right? We all know the pleasure principle, right?
What do you mean the present principle? Because I don't know it.
Well, it's called the pleasure principle, right? Basically, it's why you should not chase pleasure, because when you chase pleasure, right, the moment of pleasure is gonna be less than the moment of pain that follows,
Yeah.
because pleasure
I
and
agree
pain are
with you.
polarities. Because basically, with pleasure, pain has to follow, right?
Mm.
And pain, the period of pain is more. It's like twice or three times the period of the pleasure you experience, right?
Yeah.
Which is part of why people become more negative and get stuck in that state you talked about,
Yeah.
when they keep chasing, those momentarily, moments of happiness,
Mm-hmm.
which most people think are like think happiness is basically pleasure, right?
Yeah.
Because basically they're almost like I said. Well, I'm not saying this is a definite, but basically I think at the essence of happiness is pleasure. Because you can't be happy if you're not like having a pleasurable experience, right?
Where
I
does the
think,
pleasurable experience comes from?
well, it comes from
The
a
outside.
need that you're satisfying within yourself, basically.
No, I'm a pain.
Uh-huh.
Where does the pleasurable experience comes
Depends
from?
on the person and
It
what they
depends on
want
the person.
pleasure for. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically the needs the person has and what they're, but basically, yeah. And to go back to bliss, right? And I think bliss, the reason why I thought of bliss was because it's basically what she refers to as peace, right? Let's call it bliss, right? Because that's what came to my mind, which is the reason why I wanted to start with the second point, which I had instead of the first, because
Okay.
the first has to do with more of a chase, and which is what you should not do, right?
Yeah.
But bliss is more awareness.
You can,
and
but you should do everything in moderation. Like we are not
Mhm.
advocating that you stop yourself from chasing certain things, right?
Mhm.
Because that's basically where we get the motivation,
That's
to
true.
move
That's
forward.
true. That's
But
true.
the moment you tell yourself that I am at peace, even though you can see that you are poverty stricken, then I mean, like, come on.
That's
The
true.
moment you start saying that I want peace by you know cutting people out of your life, and then you
Mhm.
call that peace, it's
Mhm.
not sustainable. You're gonna find
That's true.
yourself more miserable than you were when you were with them. So we are not advocating that people stop chasing stuff.
That's true. Yeah, because it's only natural to human beings, right? Now, the second version of happiness,
Yeah.
which is also important and it's also supported by every enlightened group, is the idea of self-actualization, right? It's basically the pursuit of self-actualization, right? Now, in this book, this guy talks about how happiness, right? It's basically it's what he proposes as the proper way to chase pleasure, and still not fall into the the pattern of being miserable,
Yeah.
right? So basically, it's he says that pleasure is, people should stop thinking of pleasure as, no, happiness as something that's short term, but is long term. You're gonna be more happier if you figure out what you want, figure out your purpose in life, put a plan and implement it in place, and see happiness and embrace this as part of a process. So being happy is a process, and the more you follow that process and stick to
Yeah.
sexual self-actualizing more, the
Mhm.
more happier you're gonna be as you progress in your life. And basically, that's what happiness is.
Can I
It's
say something?
it's basically in the pursuit. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Mhm.
When you talk about happiness in terms of what they said in the book, right?
Mhm.
I was about to ask you, like, what does happiness look like to you as an individual?
Mhm.
Because when we say happiness and then we try to generalize the term, right?
Mhm.
People are still gonna say the things that are
Exactly.
making me happy are the
Exactly.
things that I'm chasing. You see,
Exactly.
so now you have to sit back. That's why I got to a point where I even had to tell myself to take her advice, because I felt like this is like the best advice that I've ever gotten ever since I came into this world. Being at peace, like, dude, being at peace.
Mhm.
Being at peace doesn't necessarily mean that you're at equilibrium. Like you just said. You know,
Yeah, it doesn't mean there's no chaos. It
yeah, it
just means
doesn't
that
mean that there's no chaos. It just means that
you're still grounded.
yeah,
Still
grounded,
have
and you've
that.
accepted things, and You are at peace. So the thing that I wanted to mention was, what does happiness mean to you? What does it look like to you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you know what it looks like to you,
Mm-hmm.
then you can follow the principle that you're mentioning right now.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you know what what it looks like to you.
Okay. Well, what the guy said was that
Mm-hmm.
let go of your idea of happiness because that
Mm-hmm.
idea is going to get you hurt by the pleasure principle,
Yeah. Okay.
right? The
Mm-hmm.
idea of happiness that is good for you, which is what the Taoists recommend, is that um, figure out what your life's work is, right? Figure out your life's purpose. Find out what you want to do, right?
Yeah, Ma, you can find the purpose. You have to create it yourself. But that's besides the point. Continue.
Well,
I'm sorry for doing that, but
okay,
I feel like it's more,
okay,
you know,
let me.
accurate to say that you have to create your own purpose, because there's no way you're gonna find your purpose. Where are you
Okay,
gonna find it?
that's a matter of perspective. I think it's both, right?
Okay.
The thing is, okay, there's this saying that goes, a man that defines himself can never really know who he truly is, right? So there's a point in which, like when you're growing as an adult, like a young adult, let's say 18 to 21, you literally create yourself, right? You create a character, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but if you do that, you never and never stop to think of how nature and society influences you, which is the whole goal of awareness, right? You'll never see your nature as a person and what you are as a social being. You'll just create yourself, right? And it's basically forcing yourself into the world, which is what most people do when they go on a rebellion streak and rebel against society
Can I say
and
something?
social constructs. Yeah.
Can I say something?
Mm-hmm.
Um, every time you and I have conversations, right?
I know.
I
It's the
always
best
try.
part.
I always try to tell you that you should always say stuff with the person who lives in a township at the back of your mind.
Okay.
Because like you see, this is the thing. What you're saying, I do
Mm-hmm.
not disagree with it, right? But clearly, obviously, you wouldn't be sharing with us things that were not working for you,
That's true.
right? So at this stage, it might be working for you. Because another thing that I've realized is that even with personal development itself, right? Basically, what happens is that I look at myself and then I realize all the things that are wrong about me. And then I start looking for someone who can give me something different that I can substitute the lack with, we are told. So a few days ago, I came to a point where I was like, I need to stop this whole thing of thinking that there's something wrong with me, right? Everything that you are is there because it was supposed to be there. But the thing that you can do, like the best thing that you can do, is to be aware of how you came to be who you are today. We are told, because the thing is that if you start looking at things from a perspective of, from the point of leg, right, you are always gonna find yourself doing the chasing, chasing for the next thing that can replace something within you.
That's true.
So that's really not a good way to go about it. Just okay. So and then I tried to separate my own personal life from my own entrepreneurial, journey, right? And then I realized that um, I've identified with both of them as though they are one.
Okay.
Young told.
Yeah.
So every time when you do personal development, if you're doing it for business purposes, that's perfect. If you're doing those things like learning how to speak, learning how to communicate with people, you can do those things for business purposes. But when it comes to you as a person, as an individual, right? The only thing that I feel like at this stage you need to do is to just look at the things, everything that has influenced who you came to be today, and learn to be comfortable with that. Just if you have insecurities, just learn to acknowledge them and be like, okay, they are here. Then what am I gonna do with them? The moment you become like I always say, the more familiar you become with your own insecurities, when somebody does something that usually triggers your insecurities, you are less likely to react because you've become so comfortable with them. It's even gonna get to a point where they just go into the background, we're being told, because the thing of chasing all these self-help books, trying to build a character or stuff like that, you are basically becoming something that you're not. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the thing that you're becoming is better than what you are. Because even if you feel like you are not enough and then you go on to create another persona, you're still gonna feel like you're not enough in that very same persona, and you're gonna go to the next one. So you're just gonna find yourself, going. It's 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 a never ending thing that you find yourself in, and it's going to be hard to break out of that, because the majority of people that we associate with when we are going into the realm of personal development are basically the same people who still feel like to a certain degree they are not enough, so they're looking for something to make up for that. Young talk. So the most important thing is to just realize how you came to be who you are, and just be comfortable with your own flaws.
Sure.
That's just because that's like the only thing you need. If you feel like you need to add anything on top of what you are, just do it from a business perspective. Because I feel like that's the only place where you constantly need to change. You need to ground yourself, like you said. You need to find your own ground. So if you as an individual, you are always changing, then what?
All right. Okay. Before I answer that, right? Um.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with
Yes.
anything that you said.
No,
It was just,
you were
me
not.
adding a point
Mhm.
into the whole discussion.
Yeah. Basically, the 2 points I was trying to get through was that, um, my version of being at peace and happiness is
Okay.
basically, um, the pursuit of happiness through self-actualization, which is the point I talked about through the book, and then
And you've
the
defined what happiness
exactly,
looks like to you.
and
Okay.
then the pursuit of bliss, which is basically what enlightenment is,
Yeah.
right? It's basically getting to nirvana, right? In the bliss state, which is what she refers to as being at peace. Now, in terms of, what you just mentioned about how you will always be adding to yourself, I think within that is the need to grasp, right? Right?
To
The need
grasp.
to grasp and know that this is who you are, right? And have that defined well. So I think what I was trying to say was that, well, what I'm trying to say now
I'm
is
starting to
that
I'm starting to feel like you're trying to defend your point.
no, I'm trying to realize that in what you're saying, right? This is what I get from what you're saying. From what I get from what you're saying is that, um, you're basically scared for the person who's in the personal development journey, because if they develop into somebody, right, and then they have that state of, um, self knowledge, right? There's always going to be things that they'll gravitate toward, and basically, if they start doing that, then they'll start changing into a different person, and then a different person, and a different person, and a different person,
Depending
right?
on the environment they find themselves in.
Exactly.
External conditions again.
Yeah. So bliss, right? As I understand it, as what she's saying, right? It's basically not trying to hold on to that state that you've developed, but realizing that whether the state is there or it changes, right? You're still there, and you're still the same person, right? So basically, we're always changing, right? It's like it's like being a person, right? You have different archetypes within a person. A person is not one thing, right? It's a spectrum, and it keeps on growing, right? Now the bliss part is who's at the center and knows that this is the growth, right? And I'll always keep on growing and being okay with that. But first, you have to literally, get to the state where you're okay with one and understand the one person you've created and who you are. And then you can go on to incorporate, the different parts of yourself that you discover as you gravitate toward different things in your life. So I just don't want the listeners to be scared of
Dude, I'm starting to get scared. What do you mean? This guy.
of going
Like,
into
I'm sitting here wondering, wow, this guy. Are you really taking that, have you gone down that path? Nah, but it's cool though. It's cool.
Yeah, I feel like I get it in the sense that that it is okay to develop yourself, and it is okay to understand that you're probably gonna always evolve,
Yeah.
and the situation and your environment and the conditions are likely not to remain the same as well.
Yes.
So you shouldn't be flustered by that. So there should be that state within you that has a deep understanding of the evolution going on around and with them,
Yeah.
such that you don't sway because of
Conditions.
whatever the conditions, whatever is changing around you,
Yeah.
which is my version of being grounded,
Yeah. Okay.
something like that. And then I was thinking earlier that this whole idea of peace is a bit funny because um, when I go to a Catholic church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not very often now, but hey, I go to a Catholic
Yeah.
church.
She just exposed
Okay.
herself.
So thing is, so at the end of mass, when we separate,
Mm.
we say peace be with you, and I've been saying this for forever. Even when we greet each other, yeah, we say peace be with you. When we separate, the priest says peace be with you.
Mm.
And so I think only when I thought about peace in this perspective, I was like, hold on, we we say so many things that we don't understand or
Yeah.
internalize or it's so robotic. It's like peace be with you, peace be with you,
Yeah.
peace be with you, and I never really ever understood what I meant or what I was saying over the person's life or whatever, until I thought that, and I bet in a lot of books of faith or religious books or whatever, I bet peace is the most reference made more than any other thing else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because people who are enlightened and aware understand the actual meaning of peace and how it probably has nothing to do with pleasure, has nothing to do
Yeah.
with happiness, has nothing to do with satisfaction, has nothing to do with reaching your goals or all the good things. You think, I'm at peace, and you're smiling, life is good. Someone could be at peace, but they look
With a
totally
straight face.
composed.
Yeah.
And you think, so you get what I mean?
Mm.
So that's when I understood that there's actually more depth to it than what we probably think.
Mm.
And that probably all along, even if I were to read the Bible, which I'm not very good at reading, I probably can read it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how I read the Bible is another story.
Mm.
So it's like, even if you probably come across the word peace,
Mm.
I would have never understood what it meant then than what I do now.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I'm like,
This
I've
is
been
interesting.
missing a lot, or I've been missing a lot here.
Well, I guess it kind of helps to live in a generation where we start asking questions now, like wanting to understand, because like wanting to define things so that we can all agree on the
Yeah.
definition of a certain
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, someone said there's a boom of consciousness going on currently, like a lot of awakenings. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
cool.
good. But what I hate about the kind of awakening that a lot of people do is that they are becoming more woke in terms of what's going on out there, and they try to change conditions that are outside, which is not gonna work. Because the awakening that you speak of, right? I love the fact that we've gotten to that level, right? But like I just said, it's just one of the few things that I hate about what's going on out there. That a lot of people are becoming more woke in terms of what's going on economically, education and all that stuff. But
Oh,
when it comes
I
to
get-
them,
I get
it's a
Yeah.
different matter.
Yeah.
Because even the very same people who go around saying that they're woke, they will tell you that they don't like people who do certain things. For me, that's an indication that you haven't really sat down and tried to identify why do you hate the things that people do in the first place.
And I think that's because that is on like a very surface level. Like that
Yeah.
you're woke. It's like a very surface, like the awakening I'm talking about is where you, I don't know, I would think more along a spiritual
Oh yeah, okay,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
like
yeah.
dimension or whatever.
Mhm.
But I do get like a lot of people today might describe themselves as woke, but the thing with being woke is it comes with very strong opinions and very strong feelings.
Mm.
And so I always just feel like, calm down. don't be that bothered. You know what I mean? Like, girls, I'm
Yeah.
not bothered. So it's calm down and like, do you get what you're saying? Do you understand what it means or whatever? So that woke part, I don't know, hey, but I think I'm probably talking of something that's a lot softer
Okay.
and very
Okay.
intimate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm clear. I'm glad you cleared the smoke because I was on another level.
Why?
You
What's
know,
up, Bo?
I was on
What do
another
you have
level.
against woke people?
No, I don't have anything against
Yeah.
woke people because
Yeah.
here's the thing. Like I just said, a lot of people when they get to a stage where they feel like they are woke, right? Yeah, you can be, economically wise. You can be politically wise. That's cool. I don't say you shouldn't go down that path, right? But the thing that I'm saying is that you need to sit down and evaluate your own self. Because I mean, like you hear a lot of people saying that. Okay, so this is the thing. The moment somebody comes down to blaming the system, right? We know that Africa, things are not going okay,
Yeah.
right? But the moment you start coming here and then you start blaming the system, the question that I'm going to ask you, how does your day look like? Your typical day for you, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Because me and my friend here, we never take breaks. We are constantly working. The podcast exists right now because this is just one of the few things that I feel passionate about. And I'm like, let me do this thing, so that I can impart the knowledge to other people
Yeah.
so that they can better themselves. One told.
Yeah.
Fuck, I even forgot what I wanted to say.
We're
Like,
still talking about woke people
oh yeah, so that's the
or
thing.
like
Like,
wokeness.
for me, it's just that thing, Yaguti. Look at yourself, right? And then the easiest way to even go about this thing is to look at the things that you hate, the people that you don't like, the things that make you feel insecure. Just look at those things and start asking yourself, why do I feel the way I feel towards these things? If you can do that, then at least you'll be able to see where those things come from. And you'll realize that when somebody does something similar to that, you don't even have to storm at them. You don't even have to storm at them. You just have to understand that I am at this stage. I understand what this person is saying is triggering me, right? But I need to understand that this reaction that I'm showing right now has been evolving all these years. So it's not. Sometimes it might not even be necessary. It might not be necessary. So the thing for me is, if you are woke, it's good that you're politically woke, economically woke, and we like that. We are glad that there are people who are like that, right?
Yeah.
Because they are going to move the country forward. But the thing that I advocate the most is get in touch with yourself, man. Get in touch with yourself, because no matter how much you try, you'll never change the conditions outside. You will never ever. You can try.
Yeah.
If you want to see what I'm talking about, try to change the person that you're dating and see how
That's the
that's
thing.
how
This
it's
is why I
gonna
said
go
we
down.
have very little control of the extent. Like literally, you are likely to only control how you experience things, how you say things, and more you. But I think that's the thing that we think. We actually think the opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're always focusing on, okay, so around me, like what can I change? But as long as how you, I always say the power of perception. we
Yo.
we think of, I don't even think we maximize it that much, but I think it's like it's exceptionally important. Like I could see you crying tears and I could be convinced you're laughing just because of how I want to perceive it.
Yeah.
Like, and someone could just be like, Lieketseng, like, what is it? No, he's crying, and I'm like, he's laughing. Like, but anyway, that's probably extreme. But like the power of perception is exceptional.
Yeah.
And once you're able to direct that in a healthy way,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be swayed much. You're gonna be unbothered by things.